Hello, everyone. This is Shawn Whitsell from Southern Word. Welcome to a conversation about community art and culture. I have a special guest with me, Mr. Lorenzo Washington, the curator and founder of the Jefferson Street Sound Museum. We're right here in the museum. We're going to have a little conversation with Mr. Lorenzo, learn about him and what he's doing, and just have a great Sunday talk. Mr. Lorenzo, thank you for inviting me, or thank you for welcoming me into your museum. Looking forward to this conversation. So tell me, and let's have you scoot in a little closer so they see more of you than me. Beautiful museum, really great, lots of history in this room. Before we dive into the museum, I want to know about you. Tell me about yourself, where you're from, your upbringing, how was life for you coming up?
Well, first, my name is Lorenzo Washington, and we're stationed here at 2004 Jefferson Street with the Jefferson Street Sound Museum. This museum started here at 2004 Jefferson Street about 12 years ago. I moved here on Jefferson Street. I didn't have the intent of starting a museum for sure. I moved here with the intent of starting a recording studio and to look for some artists and musicians that didn't have a home, that wanted a home here in Nashville, and especially on historical Jefferson Street. So, but the museum came later. I did have a rehearsal hall over here in the other side of the building where I rented it out to different artists and musicians from around here in Nashville, from Music Row to Jefferson Street. And a number of the musicians and artists from around here rehearsed here at the museum. But before the museum, just to give you a little, you asked for a little history.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna give you a little bit of history as to how I got to Jefferson Street. I started off, and Buchanan is close to Jefferson Street, and Buchanan is one of the next landmarks for entertainment in North Nashville. They've got a couple of bars, rental entertainment spots, and a few restaurants on Buchanan now. And my thing is to get Jefferson Street alive again. And that's what I've been working on for the last 10 or 12 years. But anyway, I started off on Buchanan with a barbecue pit. I had Lorenzo's Black and White Pig Pit Barbecue. That was my first venture in 1972. That was my first business. And I stayed there for about 3 years, and I wasn't really into the cooking thing. And another friend of mine, Rufus Hunter, had a little record shop out on Buena Vista Pike. And he wanted to get out of that because he was ready to pursue something else. So I bought him out over on Buena Vista Pike, and I renamed the shop, renamed it the Soul Shack Record Shop and Boutique. And I sold records, I sold black dolls, and I sold clothes. It was a boutique. And people like Shaka Khan, Teddy Pendergrass, Son, just a number of different artists had, come to my shop and all goods. I remember Shaka Khan came in there and bought a denim pantsuit And back then, you know, I think that pantsuit was like about $250, and that was back in the early '70s. So we had some somewhat high end items in the boutique, and I left the boutique. Couple of guys that I knew, Moses Dillard and Jesse Boyce, came to Nashville from North Carolina. And back in the day when they were kids, people like Jesse Jackson, um, um, Peebo Bryson, those guys were from the same neighborhood, and they put bands together and, you know, different things. But anyway, they came to Nashville and came to Music Row and started a record label over there and a production company. And they first came here doing gospel and some R&B, but they eventually changed it over to disco music and started doing disco music. And at that point, I had bought a percentage of that business, and they ended up doing disco music over here on Music Road. And it was the first Black production company to be accepted by Music Road and BMI and that bunch. Mm-hmm. But anyway, they started doing this disco music. And one of the first projects that they had done in disco was Saturday Night Band, was the name of the group, and the song was "Come On Dance Dance." So and we got 2 Grammy nominations for that project. The second one didn't get a Grammy, but I ended up writing a song on the second project that was released and published national and international. So I did get a song out there, you know, nice. From that. And so in 1980, disco music sort of went out and the rap music came in, you know, in the 70s. After 75, rap music started squeezing in and squeezing disco music out. So we got Squares out of that. We thought we had touched on to something that was going to be major in the city, but it just didn't happen. But at least I can say I was a part of a big conglomerate like that, you know, and which was put us kind of major in the music business at that time. We didn't make as much money as we expected, but we did get some recognition from doing what we had done. And those guys were 2 of the Jesse Boyce and Moses Dillard, which both of them are deceased now, but they were 2 of the, I'm just going to use slang, they was 2 of the baddest musicians that I had ever heard, you know. Jesse played bass guitar, and he played bass guitar for Little Richard for about 20 years. And Moses Dillard even played with Chad Atkins at one point, did shows with him. And Moses Dillard was, you know, as far as a guitarist, was one of the best. He could have played with any of the best, Wes Montgomery, somebody, you know, he was just that good. But you know, that's just some of the things that I had done before the museum.
So how did you come about? Like you said, you didn't initially have this idea to do a museum. What made you go in this direction?
Oh, that was a good one. Now, you know, I told you I used to have the rehearsal hall where some of these, like Marion James and Clifford Curry and DeFord Bailey, you know, a bunch of the old guys, and all of these guys are deceased now. They used to come here and rehearse. Mary and James would pull everybody together. And this was my house in the beginning. And after rehearsal, we come over to the other side of the building here to my house. And we sit around over there and just talk, maybe have a cup of coffee or beer or whatever, you know. And we just sit around over there and talk about the old days, you know. And so these artists and musicians that was doing that, they were the ones that was playing with the Jimi Hendrix and opening up for the B.B. Kings and, you know, these people. So they were afraid their legacy was going to be forgotten. You know, that nobody was going to remember who they were. And these were the ones that didn't make it to stardom, but they were good. Yeah. They were great artists and musicians, but they were afraid their legacy was going to be just completely lost and forgotten, and it was. It actually was. You know, we were sitting around in there discussing, you know, whose music is being played today, or whose music is being talked about. You know, none of them's music was being talked about. None of them's music was being played, and they all had singles, and some of them had albums, but their music wasn't being played. You know, and so after we sat around and talked about it, they started bringing, Mary and James started bringing pictures and different stuff around here for me to put in my house. You know. So after they had come and brought a few things over here, Marion started saying we need to put a museum together. I said, a museum? Who's gonna do a museum?
In your house.
In my house.
Right.
In my house. And so after them bringing a few more pictures and stuff, I started moving the furniture out of my living room in there. And I actually turned it into a little museum because I had a few pictures up of these artists. And then after them holding other conversations and little meetings about what we could do, you know, here on Jefferson Street, then I started cleaning out my den and hanging pictures. I hung every picture, and there's pictures all over this place. I hung every picture on these walls. And Mary and James again, and Clifford Curry is saying, we ought to get some of the guys to come over here and just jam in your place. And so I thought about it, you know, now they're really running me out of my own house, you know.
Making you find somewhere else to live, is that what they were doing?
They were trying. So I did have one room in the back of the museum. And I said, what I could do is take and move my bed and stuff back in that room and move it out of the room, my bedroom, so we could use that room even. And the next thing you know, man, I had a full-blown museum in here after about 6 months to a year. And but what I'm doing here is representing the legacy of all of these great artists and musicians that played in this town and on Jefferson Street. And this house has a little bit of history. It was built in 1909, 1909, and in the late 50s and early 60s, this used to be a boarding house. Wow. Where different musicians stayed in here. And one musician that stayed in this house, Hank Crawford, he's over there on the wall, but Hank Crawford used to live upstairs where my recording studio is now. Wow, I just said it. I've got another recording studio. full circle. You know, now in another week, I should have that recording studio ready to record. And we're going to see if we can find us the next star out of Nashville.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because this conversation is about it's a part of the BlackLift Music and Poetry Festival that we have been doing for a few years now. And what we're doing, we're like spotlighting through the weekend young artists, up and coming artists. And, you know, we have poetry slams. Last night we had a poetry slam. I was telling people about, or not a slam, but an open mic. And I was telling people about this conversation there. And I was like, y'all ever been to, Jefferson Street Slam Museum? A lot of people clapped and raised their hand. A guy came up and told me that, I can't remember his name, but he was a friend of yours.
Yeah.
But are you talked earlier about getting Jefferson Street popping again. And we know that in 60s, 70s, there were all these artists. You mentioned Shaka Khan, James Brown came through. And so do you see Jefferson, with all the changes that's happened and continue to happen, do you see Jefferson ever being able to reclaim that glory? And what part do you and the museum play in that?
Well, I don't think Jefferson Street will ever reclaim the glory that we experienced years back. Mm-hmm. But I look at where we are now. If we could get a dinner club over here on Jefferson Street, just to bring an element of folk back to Jefferson Street. Now, back in the day, you couldn't come to Jefferson Street in the clubs with tennis shoes on. Mm-hmm. You had to dress up, every weekend. Some folk went to worked all week just to buy nice outfits to go to the clubs. So, but I would love to see other restaurants and clubs up and down Jefferson Street, but we don't have any of us wanting to put up the monies. And I'm doing what I can do, because it's killing me to be here, but I'm here. And I said years ago that that I was going to go back to Jefferson Street and try and make a difference. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've done up to now, is try to make a difference, to be encouraging to other young production companies or record labels or writers, authors, mm-hmm. just to bring the music scene back to Jefferson Street, which would create other resources, other avenues for other businesses to come to Jefferson, and not just music, but to encourage all other businesses to come back to Jefferson Street and bring some of that wealth, musical wealth, mm-hmm. and energy back to Jefferson Street. It's what I would like to see happen, but it'll never be like it was. But if we had some of that energy back over here on Jefferson, it would be great. Mm-hmm. And this is in Jefferson Street. What a lot of folk don't know, that Jefferson Street was the Wall Street of Nashville, of Black Nashville. This is where it all happened at, mm-hmm. was over here on Jefferson Street. And for it to be like it is now, it's almost like a crime to see this happen this way. Yeah. But there is room for improvement. Mm-hmm.
you talked about the museum. It seemed that things came about in a very organic way. You know, it started out with somebody bringing pictures and somebody else bringing, and then, you know, you're like, what, a museum? But then the next thing you know, you're moving furniture to make space for these artists. And then you mentioned how this was like a boarding house, right? So it's almost like it was fate, you know, that it's become a place where these maybe underappreciated musicians get a chance to continue to live, right? And so you made a great sacrifice by changing your home into a museum. Yeah. I'm interested in knowing that, like you mentioned the future of Jefferson Street, not never being able to reclaim those glory days, but the potential for some more growth, at least in that direction, right? So how do young people and up and coming artists, how have they responded to the museum? Did they come? Are there events here that attract like new artists? How is that?
Well, we haven't so much had events here that attract new artists. We have had some live shows here. And we're getting ready to start doing live shows every month, you know, having groups in here. Or we've had Mr. Roy Wooten in here doing classes, and he'll be back at the end of the month. First week within the next 2 to 3 weeks, that he'll be back in here doing classes. And we will have some young artists and matter of fact, I'm looking for that one special voice, that one artist that we can take into the studio, and we will be promoting how we'll find that artist in the very near future. The studio should be finished within 2 weeks. It's a nice place, and it would be the first. It is the first recording studio to release a project off Jefferson Street. You know, for the last 60 years. You know, I haven't found. And if anybody know of a studio that was on Jefferson Street that released music, please get in touch with me here at the Jefferson Street Sound Museum and share that information with me. Because I'm saying that we are the first recording studio here on Jefferson Street to release a project. And we released one major project by Don Adams. Don Adams is one of Nashville's finest musicians, and he was here with me for 4 or 5 years, and we released a project on him. We got a lot of radio play out of 92Q with Fist 88.1 with that project. And still I listen to it because it was a good project. You know, and that's been 5, 6 years ago when we did that. But still, we carry the torch to move forward with trying to work with some of the young artists that's here in Nashville and that's looking for a home, you know, and we're looking for a deal, you know, and hopefully. We're working kind of closely now with Belmont, and we're doing some work with Fist, looking to do some things with Tennessee State University over here. So we're connecting with the younger group of folk in the Nashville community.
So I can look around. There's lots of pictures. There's albums. There's I see instruments, and you know, everybody might not be able to see everything you can't see everything in the room. So I see all this stuff, all this history, and like we talked about, some of the artists, or a lot of the artists were underappreciated, artists who you wanted to make sure you preserve their legacy. Are there any artists that are hanging in this room that come visit the museum? Or a lot of them still living? How do they feel about you honoring them in this way?
Well, most of the ones that I honor are deceased, the majority of them. Mary and James used to, but it was before it was the real museum. You know, this is when I was sort of getting started with it. And Mary and James used to come here. Clifford Curry, Herbert Hunter has been here a couple of times, and he's the person that I came to Jefferson Street with. He was a singer, and he ended up getting a hit record, a single, and you know, buying him a new car and all of that. And we were raised up together from the age of about 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old. And when he came to Jefferson Street and got hooked up with the Ted Jarretts and the Gene Allisons and LaVert Allison and all of these guys, I was Herbert's buddy, but I couldn't sing a lick, couldn't play nothing, you know. So if I had to carry his suitcase or his briefcase, you know, just to get in and out of certain places, because you had Little Richard over here on Jefferson Street. You had Jimi Hendrix over here on Jefferson Street, and I was able to get in offices and the clubs and stuff when the clubs weren't open. I could get in to the rehearsals and different stuff with my friend Herbert. So I was able to manipulate my way through this music scene when it wasn't popular for the younger guys, especially from Nashville. Mm-hmm. You know, I was a Nashvilleian, lived in the ghetto, you know, out there. Now here I am down here at the Del Morocco or at the Club Baron, going in the side door, you know, for a rehearsal. And so those are the guys and gals that was here on Jefferson then. And they're all gone, but they did come in here, and especially in the rehearsal hall, because I had the rehearsal hall before I actually had before I put the museum together. So I can say those folk came in here. Little Richard came by here, and he walked by here, but he never come in here, you know. But this is before. Jesse Boyce, and Jesse Boyce and Little Richard was really good friends. Matter of fact, Jesse Boyce and I, you know, Jefferson Street is, you know, is famous for its music and live music and all. So Jesse Boyce and I came over and thought up of another name for Jefferson Street. And we named it the Original Music Road. And the reason we named it Jefferson Street, the Original Music Road, was because Music Road over on 16th, 18th over there, they produced they did a lot of recordings. You know, they had recording studios over there. But Jefferson Street over here had live music. They had all of these clubs up and down Jefferson Street. So it was live music, and it was before Music Road. And that's why I named, and Jesse, we named Jefferson Street the Original Music Road, because we had all of this live music over here on Jefferson Street, and Music Road, they just they had recording studios.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have live music over there. So and the Tennessean caught on to that uh, original Music Row, and they put an article in the Tennessean, and they had us on the front page. They blasted us. They had to give us the whole front page and the second page, and the original Music Row. So it really caught on. So there has been a few people to mention Jefferson Street being the original Music Row.
It's interesting you say that, and then we know that Nashville is called Music City because of the Fifth Jubilee singers, even though some people don't know that, right? So that's happening right here in this area. How do you feel about the fact that Nashville is known as Music City and so much rich music and history started here in Jefferson Street, but doesn't get the credit for it? What do you say to that?
Well, when country music got a little more popular in the city, and then they started ducking money, put money into the process of country music, TV, radio, the Grand Ole Opera, different things, they did. And they didn't want any other genre of music bumping heads with country music. So they didn't promote or didn't put money behind any other genre of music here in Nashville. Sort of pushed the blues and R&B music scene out of Nashville into Memphis and other places. So blues and R&B and jazz got a bad break from the people with money, people that could make a record or break you. They didn't want no other music to butt heads with country music. So the R&B, blues, and jazz got pushed right on out of Nashville. That's why you don't hear a lot of it in Nashville, although all of this talent was here in this city. You had folk like Larry Birdsong, Arthur Gunter, Roscoe Shelton, Earl Gaines, Marion James, Jesse Boyce, we had Christine Cottrell. We had all of these people, all of these great, and that's just a few of them. After we came in here with the museum thing, I designed a tree, and this tree represents Jefferson Street and the nightclubs that was on Jefferson Street, and artists and musicians that played in these particular nightclubs that was on Jefferson Street. So I've got this nice big tree that I had designed, and my best friend, Morgan Hines, created the design of this tree. It's a beautiful piece of art. And it has so much pertinent information on this tree. And it's right here on the walls when you come to the Jefferson Street Sound Museum to visit, and you must come. This is the only place you can come and get the real history from the Black side of Nashville. Nowhere else in this city can you go and get this information, the information that I'm relaying to you now. You can't go nowhere else and get it. If you don't come to Jefferson Street and get it at the Jefferson Street Sound Museum, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, it's important that people support, and so they can learn that history, and also just contributes to this place staying around. We've seen a lot of change, so people definitely need to come and support the museum so that you can continue to maintain and continue to be here. Let's talk about your event that you have coming up in April. You have a gala coming up. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's April 3rd. Brenda Gilmore, Senator Brenda Gilmore, gave me a proclamation last year. And this proclamation gave me a day, Lorenzo Washington's Day on April the 3rd. And 2023 is when we're going to have the gala at the Maxwell House Hotel, not too far from here. And we are going to have a band, a hot band. We're going to recognize some of the legends that's still with us. And I've got Karen Coffey, who assists me with all of what we're doing now. And she is the vice president of the Jefferson Street Sound Museum now. And she can tell you in more details what we're doing here on Jefferson.
Okay, so Karen is not going to be on camera, but Karen is going to share with us some more about the game.
Right, so we're just excited about Monday, April 3rd, Maxwell House Hotel, celebrating, of course, our founder and curator, Lorenzo Washington, for all of his passion and dedication to preserving the musical legacies here on Jefferson Street. And we're going to recognize and celebrate 5 living legends. Billy Cox. Most people are familiar with Billy Cox, who performed with Jimi Hendrix. He is actually the last living band member, the last gypsy living out of a Jimi Hendrix band. And then Peggy Gaines. Peggy performed at Club Zanzibar here on Jefferson Street and was also a performer on the Night Train show and recorded House of Broken Hearts. So we're excited to honor Peggy. And then Lucius Spoon Mantally. Everybody knows Lucius by playing the spoons. He's also a pianist as well. Very talented. We're excited to honor him. And Frank Howard. Frank Howard and the Commanders also performed on Night Train. Frank is still performing as well. And he performed on, as I said, Night Train, the variety show. And then Jimmy Church. It's who doesn't know Jimmy Church in Nashville, Tennessee, right?
Right.
And Jimmy is still performing. So we're just so excited to have all of these living legends come to the event and let us honor them.
And where can people find out more information about it?
People can find out more information by visiting the Jefferson Street Sound Museum website, which is jeffersonstreetsound.com. And they can also purchase tickets there, sponsorship, donations, and as far as taking out a full page ad for the gala program. So we're just excited. Everybody come out. Tickets are selling quickly. There is limited space, so come out and purchase your ticket.
All right, jeffersonstreetsound.com.
Correct.
So go there to get tickets, sponsorships, donations, ads, all of that. All the information is there. Mr. Lorenzo, before we go, I just wanted to know what kind of advice or encouragement or insight can you provide our viewers, young artists, anyone upcoming, because you've seen a lot in the business, both on the music side, but then also just in this neighborhood and then on the museum side. So what parting words could you share with our young listeners who might just need a little bit of inspiration?
Well, to the young artists and musicians, the first thing I would say is don't give up on your dreams. Continue to work hard, practice, get your skills as tight as you can get them. There's a lot of competition out here. So you're gonna have to be the best in order to make it in this, especially in this music business. This is no joke out here now. You gotta be the best. And in order to be the best, you gotta prepare yourself to be the best. And find you a home and find somebody that's willing to work with you and get you in position to cut a record. You know, you're gonna have to have a good project. You know, you're not gonna have to have, but it's always good to have a good project to take with you when you go to different record labels, large record labels. Now, a little person like myself, you know, all I can do is help prepare you for the record deal that you are really looking for. So, and we will be working with some young folk to help prepare them to get to the big deal. So, like I say, prepare yourself. That's what is going to get you there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for sharing with us. Congratulations on Lorenzo Washington Day, April 3rd. We wish you much success with the gala. Again, everybody go get your tickets to the gala, support this man and his mission. So we thank you so much. Any parting words before we go? Anything else that you want to say that you didn't have the opportunity to say?
No, I'm not a big talker myself. I guess I've talked more here this evening than I have in a while. I didn't want to come on and look silly or strange, but I do have a lot to share with you, especially when you come to the museum. Come on over and let me enhance your knowledge about our community.
There we go. Come on over and get you some knowledge. I'm going to give me a little bit of knowledge before I leave. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all. Please share this post so more people can learn about the Jefferson Street Sound Museum. Y'all have a blessed Sunday.